Okay, so you want to dive into order book scalping, right?
Yeah.
You sent over this MetaQuant, the comprehensive guide to profitable order book scalping.pdf thing.
Yeah.
Dense.
Yeah.
It's intense. It really is like the ultimate roadmap, though. But like, don't worry, we're going to break it down, make sure, you don't get lost in the weeds here. We'll hit the highlights, extract the golden nuggets, all that good stuff. But before we even think about becoming, the Flash or Wall Street, even IS scalping,
Right.
like when I picture it in my head, I'm imagining like people just mainlining espresso.
Yeah.
Just like glued to their screens.
Yeah, it can feel a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But it's less about just being like the fastest click in the West, and it's more about really, how do you use information strategically? So imagine you're like a detective at a crime scene. Scalping is really about analyzing those clues in the order book. And so by that, I mean looking at the buy and sell orders that other traders have placed. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain of why the market's moving.
Okay, so it's less about speed and more about strategy.
Exactly.
Got it. So like the order book is our magnifying glass, like that's our fingerprint dust.
Exactly.
That's where we're looking for the clues.
You got it.
Okay. This guide mentions, TradingView, NinjaTrader, Interactive Brokers, all these platforms for trading. Is there like a magic one, or is it more about just like finding the right fit for you?
It's definitely more about tailoring it to your style. So think about it, like setting up your cockpit in a race car. Every platform has its strengths, but ultimately you need to customize the display of the order book to actually like match how you trade best.
And by customize, we're talking about like what should people be focusing on when they're setting up their platform for this kind of trading?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first off, you've got what's called the top of book, or sometimes it's called level 1. And so that's essentially the best available buy and sell prices in that very moment in time. And then you're also going to want to be looking at order size, because that tells you how much volume is actually behind those prices. It's like seeing the muscle behind the punch. And then lastly, don't forget time and sales data. So that's really the market's heartbeat, is showing you what's actually being traded in real time.
Okay. So it's like getting like real-time updates on the supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
But for a product that is like constantly fluctuating in value.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where it gets really juicy, right? Chapter 3 in the guide jumps into like scotting opportunities. And this idea of order imbalances seems to be key. Explain it to me like I'm 5, who also happens to be like really into making money fast.
All right. So picture this. You've got a tug of war, right?
Mm-hmm.
On one side, you've got all the buyers, and on the other side, you've got all the sellers. Now, when the tug of war is nice and balanced, that price is going to stay pretty stable. But then when one side starts pulling harder, say, you see a massive wall of buy orders at a certain price, that's an order imbalance. And where there's an imbalance, often there's a really good opportunity for a savvy scalper.
It's like seeing a line of shoppers waiting for like, a store to open on Black Friday or something. There's going to be some serious buying action in a second. Give me an example. Give me something concrete, something from like the book, like to illustrate this order imbalance.
Sure, yeah. So imagine you see 1,000 buy orders all stacked up at, let's just say, $50. But then there are only, measly 200 sell orders at that same price. That's a huge imbalance, way more buying pressure than selling pressure. And so a scalper might see that and think, okay, there's a good chance the price is about to go up. I could buy in now and hopefully sell for a quick profit when it jumps.
Okay, so you've spotted the imbalance, you spotted the potential opportunity. This is where it gets interesting. What happens next? Like, how do you make a move? How does a scalper actually act on this information?
So this is where those different order types come into play, market orders, limit orders, stop loss orders. It's about choosing the right tool.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, break it down for me. Let's say I'm staring at this beautiful order imbalance and I'm ready to make my move. Like, what are my options?
So if you're feeling confident and you want to get in on the action, like right now, you would use what's called a market order.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's essentially like saying, give me the best price available right now, regardless of what it is. But, and this is important for our listeners, it doesn't guarantee a specific price.
Right.
The market's moving quickly.
So market order is more like, get me in the game, ACP.
Yeah, exactly.
What about these limit orders? Those seem a little more, controlled.
Yeah, exactly. So a limit order lets you set your price. It's essentially like saying, I am only willing to buy at this price or lower, or sell at this price or higher. So it gives you more control. But the catch is it might not execute if the price doesn't actually hit that target that you set.
So it's a trade-off. It's like speed versus precision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like, it reminds me of that time I tried to like time the stock market perfectly. Not my finest hour.
We've all been there.
But yeah, there was one other type of order you mentioned. Stop loss, was it?
Right.
Sounds kind of ominous.
Yeah, so stop loss orders, these are really your lifesavers. Think of it like an emergency brake.
Okay.
So it'll automatically sell your position if the price drops to a certain level that you've predefined. And so this is really helpful to limit your losses, which is absolutely crucial in scalping.
So it's like you're setting a safety net just in case, things go south, which they do sometimes. Speaking of, this guide, it really hammers home this whole risk management thing. Like, Chapter 4 is basically a love letter to not losing all your money.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because even the best scalpers in the world, they will have losing trades. The key is how do you actually manage those losses so they don't wipe you out completely?
Right.
So the guide talks about never risking more than 1% of your capital on a single trade. And of course, these are rules of thumb. They're not set in stone.
Right. The 1% rule. Yeah. It's one thing to read it. It's another thing to internalize it and actually put it into practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Break it down. Give me an example of how that actually looks in action.
Sure, yeah. So let's just say you have $10,000 in your trading account, right?
Okay.
Following the 1% rule, you wouldn't want to risk more than $100 on any single trade. Doesn't matter how good it looks.
Right.
It sounds small, but it adds up over time. And most importantly, it prevents one bad trade from totally wiping you out.
It's like having a budget, but for your trades.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. There's also this thing that the guide mentions called risk-reward ratio.
Right.
Which sounds very much like something out of a economics textbook, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, it sounds fancy. It's actually a very, very simple concept. It's really all about weighing your potential profits against your potential losses before you even enter a trade. So the guide actually recommends aiming for at least a 1.2 ratio, meaning for every dollar you risk, you're aiming to make 2. So even if you lose, let's say, on half your trades,
you could still come out ahead.
You could still be profitable.
I like those odds. Okay. This is all very surface level though, right?
Yeah.
The real pros, they've got to have some secret sauce, right?
Oh yeah, they definitely do. And luckily for us, the guide, it dives deep. We're talking tape reading, we're talking market depth data, even this thing called 4D analysis. This is next level stuff.
Ooh, okay. We're getting into spy thriller zone now.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what our listeners signed up for.
Yeah.
Hit me with your best shot. What are these advanced techniques?
So with tape reading, it's like this. The order book, that shows us the potential trades, right? The ones that are lined up and ready to go.
Right.
But the tape, that's the record of the actual trades happening in real time. So it's instead of just seeing the potential, you're listening to the market's heartbeat.
So instead of just seeing who's lining up to buy or sell, you're seeing who's actually, throwing down the gauntlet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by analyzing the speed of those trades, the size of those trades, the patterns that emerge, you can start to anticipate, where things might be heading.
Okay. So what kind of patterns? Give me an example. I'm picturing Sherlock Holmes, but instead of magnifying glass, it's a candlestick chart.
Yeah. So let's say you see all of a sudden this burst of large buy orders coming through on the tape.
Okay.
Way bigger than the usual activity. That could signal that, maybe a big institutional player is entering the market, and that might push the price up.
It's like seeing a shark fin in the water. Everyone else is getting out of the way.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so tape reading, it's all about understanding the subtle signals, the whispers, amongst all the noise.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got market depth data, and this is where things get really, really interesting.
Okay.
Because instead of just seeing those best bid and offer prices, those top-level prices, market depth lets you look at all of the orders that are waiting in the wings at all these different price levels.
Hold on. So it's we're peeling back even more layers of the market. We're going deeper into the matrix here.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Imagine you're looking at a skyscraper, right? The order book is only showing you the top floor, but market depth data, that's letting you see all the way down to the ground floor, revealing the hidden structure.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is why I love these deep dives, man. But okay, how do we make sense of all this data? It just seems like a lot to process.
Right. And that's where tools like, Metaquant's 4D analysis come in. This is like having X-ray vision into the market.
Whoa.
It helps to identify these hidden patterns in the order book, and especially when it comes to these iceberg orders that the guide talks about.
Iceberg orders? Okay, that sounds very sneaky.
Yeah. So Imagine, like, someone wants to buy a huge amount of stock, but they don't want to spook the market by placing one massive order.
Right.
So what they do is they break it up into a bunch of smaller orders and kind of feed them into the market gradually.
So they're not, like, rocking the boat too much.
Exactly, exactly. And that's where having the right tools and the right knowledge can give you a real edge.
Okay, so we've got all this awesome information. We're feeling very confident. We're feeling like trading ninjas.
Yeah.
But I got to ask, like, this is intense.
Yeah.
How do you not just, like, burn out after 5 minutes of this? Like, what does the guide say about the mental game of all this?
So it's not just about, like, the strategy, the tools, those are important, but you got to have the right mindset going into this. Discipline is key, just like, any high performance activity. And so the guide compares it to, being an athlete. You need your pregame routine, that focus during the game, and then that cool down afterward to kind of, come back down to earth.
So no more trading based on, like, gut feeling or, like, a hot tip you got from your uncle at Thanksgiving?
Yeah, probably not the best approach.
Probably not.
It's all about sticking to your plan, even when, like, your emotions are telling you to do something else entirely. And then just as important is, actually taking the time to review your trades, analyze what worked, what didn't work, and use that to get better over time.
So it's about, like, constant learning and adaptation, basically.
Absolutely. The market is like a river, It's always flowing, it's always changing, and you need to be able to adapt your strategies to the conditions.
You make it sound almost like Zen,
Yeah.
Like, go with the flow of the market. But I like it. So if our listener, they're ready to just dive head first into this whole world of order book scalping, what's the one piece of advice, like the one thing you really want them to take to heart?
I would say, remember, it's not about speed. It's about precision. It's about understanding what the order book is telling you and making those informed decisions based on data, based on analysis, not just like your gut.
It's about being a market detective, not a gambler.
Exactly.
I like that. Well, this guide, the MetaQuant, the comprehensive guide to profitable order book scalping, it's been a wild ride, honestly. So much great info, even for someone like me, who thought I knew a thing or two about, the markets. But for our listeners, if you're ready to take your scalping game to the next level, definitely check out the resources that are mentioned in the guide. There are books, websites, even have MetaQuant's own website. They've got a YouTube channel, so many great resources out there for you. And with that, I think it's time for us to wrap up this exhilarating deep dive into the fascinating world of order book scalping. Knowledge is power, and as always, may your trades be ever in your favor.